Grab everybody's attention. I've got 2:30. We'll get started. My name is Todd Grantham. On behalf of NAFA and the National Member Benefits Committee, I'd like to welcome you guys. Thank you for coming here today. I'd also like to welcome our speaker, Stephen Plewes. He is a 33-year industry veteran with 26 years as a qualifying and life member of MDRT, the last 5 as top of the table. Active in the industry in MDRT for most of his career, he recently served as MDRT Divisional Vice President of Best Practices Division 1. He's a frequent industry speaker and is often quoted and interviewed by various media, and I particularly like the fact that he went to school at Elon, has kids at Wake Forest, and has a North Carolina connection as well. Thank you. Welcome, Stephen.
Thanks. Great. Good afternoon. Everybody have a nice lunch. Everybody's nice and sleepy. No napping. I wanted to spend a couple of minutes up front just kind of trying to understand who's here this afternoon. So I want to just ask you a couple of questions because I want to make sure I give you the kind of information that you're looking for. Let me see a show of hands of anybody that's been in the business less than 10 years. Great. How about more than 15 years? You only get to raise your hand one time. All right. More than 20 years. All right. So we have a little bit of everything. How many of you are using technology in your business today? Okay. Using iPads and things like that to work on? Or just to play fantasy football? How many of you have staff that you are paying for out of your own pocket? All right. Got a good audience here. I have a good audience for what I'm talking about. That's lucky for me. Today, there's a few things I want to try to pass on to you. My talk yesterday on the main platform was to talk to you about how I moved from a traditional brick and mortar type of a practice into a virtual office environment. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit, but I want to also share with you some things I've learned in my 33 years in the business and through my involvement in the $1 Million Roundtable. And recently in the top of the table in the last 5 years. First of all, congratulations for being here at this meeting. I was president of my local in 1991, and I actually remember some very key things I learned when I came to that meeting that have stuck with me all these years. So I hope to pass on one or two of those things. You know, when I'm at MDRT or Top of the Table or NAFA or anywhere, I'm just hoping to get one or two little nuggets because sometimes, as somebody mentioned, it is trying to drink out of a fire hose. You get so much information and it's hard to take it back and really implement it. And so, you know, I just, one bit of advice I've taken away from meetings is to just one or two little nuggets. If you can do that, it can be life-changing for you. A couple of things I want to make sure that we take away today, and that is I'm going to share with you some practice management ideas, getting organized, staying organized. We're going to talk about some techniques and some ideas and some power concepts. And really, I want to share with you what my philosophy is about the big picture. In other words, what's the point of all this? I mean, we're working, making a living, trying to feed our families, but there's a bigger purpose, and I want to also talk to you about what that is in your life. So the three main points I want you to take away are to try to seek to have the kind of business and the kind of life that you really want. Sometimes we get caught up in doing what we're doing and we just end up someplace 20 years later and we don't really realize that we could have made the turn that we wanted to make had we thought about it. It's important to that end to define and crystallize what your goals are. And goal setting and regular goal setting and monitoring and management of that's key to growing your business. And some people are in a cycle right now. You may find yourself in a cycle and you want to break out of it. So maybe some of the things we talk about today will give you some ideas about how to change your course if that's what it is you're trying to do. Another big idea that I've learned is to focus on process and not product. And it's real easy to get caught up in the product selling business. You know, because many of you, especially if you've been in the business 10 years or less, you might be caught up in trying to meet quotas or to validate or to qualify. And what I've learned is that process, if you'll stick with a given process over and over and over again, you'll end up selling more product at the end of the day. Positioning yourself as a problem solver is probably the most important thing, because then people will be attracted to you. You really don't have to go out to them. They will seek you out to help them solve their problems. And we'll talk a little bit about staffing as well. I've learned that with technology's here. It's here to stay. I took a big leap and transformed my business into a virtual office environment. And I'll just tell you real quickly a little bit about how I'm operating now. I mentioned it yesterday, but I don't have a traditional office. We do use a virtual office provider for those times when I need to see people, in a professional office environment. And I guess it's okay to use the name of it. I use Regis Office Systems, and they're all over the country. And that's why I like them, because I have clients all over the country, and I can go to just about any town in America and rent office space or conference room by the hour. And so I found that to be a more efficient way for me to operate. It also allows me to live, where I want to live. And occasionally, it allows me to go 3 or 4 days without shaving, which I like to do. And I made a joke to someone that, sometimes I might go 4 or 5 days without putting on socks, and that's a wonderful thing too. But that doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen accidentally. Staffing's key to helping you get there, as long as planning. And then I think for me, one of the more important things that I learned was understanding what my true value was. Because for a long time, especially when I started charging fees, and that was a big discussion in our office. Is anybody out here now charging fees for what they do, for planning or retirement planning or financial planning? Sometimes I find that it's difficult for people to really communicate what their value is, because the clients always want to go to the cost, and they don't always see the benefit. And we're not always great at selling the value of the services we provide. So that's something I want to communicate with you, and I'll give you a little bit of it now, but as we go through, I'll develop it more. But we feel like we provide value through leadership, relationship, and creativity. And we don't enumerate services that we provide or products that we have access to. We don't enumerate that we serve coffee in our office or that we have free parking. Leadership, relationship, and creativity, and we'll talk about what that means. I'm here because MDRT has been great enough to ask a few of us to come and to share some of the things we've learned. And I just really want to let you know how important MDRT has been to me in my life. I went to MDRT the first year in 1986. It was after my brother had died. I almost went out of the business because I couldn't focus anymore. And thank God somebody in our agency just went to an MDRT meeting and decided that was a very important thing. And I caught the bug, and I went, and it was life-changing for me. I never missed a meeting since then, and I've never looked back. And it sent me on a completely different course. So how many people have been to MDRT before, MDRT meeting, annual meeting? Fantastic. How many of you think you want to go one day? That's one of your life goals. Great, that's even better. We're going to try to help you get there. That's why we're here today. At that meeting, you have unbelievable resources, some of the brightest minds in the world. Really, that's a different element than we have here at NAFA. We have people from all over the world that come, and even though their tax laws are different, they also have different points of view. They're facing some things that we are hopefully never going to see here, things like issues about commission disclosures and things along those lines, but they have regulation that in many cases dwarfs what we're facing. But yet they still manage, and so you can really learn a lot from that. It's like a big international study group at the end of the day. So my goal here is to try to share some things with you, some specifics as well as some concepts, and then I want to leave some time at the end in case we have some other questions, okay? Including things specifically about technology. Like was mentioned in my introduction, I've been in the business 33 years. I started out running a debit, so that gives you a little perspective. I started with needs-based selling through Tom Wolfe's capital needs analysis, and it was a real for some of the old timers, you may remember Tom Wolfe himself. But it was a real fact finder is what it was. In the beginning, it was one of the early fact finders, and we just went right through it, and it asked every question that we ask in a financial planning data questionnaire today. What do you have? Where is it? Who owns it? And it really was a precursor to what we know today as financial planning. And I used that track. I was exposed to that early on. We charge fees for financial planning. We have assets under management, and we do sell products. Our referrals, our business is built on referrals, and they're mainly unsolicited referrals. We had a process for a long time where we asked for referrals, but we found that the more process-driven we were and the more we were positioned as problem solvers, the more readily the referrals came unsolicited. And that's a great thing. That's a fantastic thing to have developed over the years. And as I mentioned to you, I've been very involved in my NAFA, so I thank you for all the work that you're doing because we have some very important issues in front of us. I'm glad you're here. I hope you're having a good time. I heard a few of you had maybe a little bit too much of a good time last night, but we won't name the states. The police were called, but that's... Even though I do hold myself out as a financial planner, I do believe that risk-based products, things like life insurance and annuities and long-term care and disability, these things are foundational to a good financial plan. I mean, these are not optional things. You have to have these things in order before you can talk about everything else. And so at the end of the day, you might say I'm an overnight success after 33 years. Someone said one time that success is being able to do what you love. And I would expand that to say success is doing something that you love and also helping other people be able to do the things that they love. Because there's a tremendous amount of gratification that I get from helping people get what they want out of life. It's my purpose, if you will. Zig Ziglar said it better than anything. He said, you can have all the things in life that you want if you just help enough other people get all the things that they want. My kids have heard that a few times, and they memorized it. Another thing I want you to know about me before we get going is that I'm an optimist. Some people would call me argumentative, but I'm an optimist. I think optimism is indefensible. Pessimists, they just assume everything that can go wrong will go wrong, and it never does. It never does. Because as human beings, we adapt to change. So, many of you have been around a long time in this business. You've seen a lot of changes, and yet you're still here. And that's an important message. We have to be adaptable. Stephen Wright, the comedian with the curly, crazy hair, he says, always borrow money from a pessimist because they don't expect you to pay it back. He has one, I think, that's pretty funny, too. He says, 99% of all politicians give the rest of them a bad name. I don't know if you can see this commercial too well, this cartoon too well, but it says, you've got the brontosaurus up there, and he's speaking to the other brontosaurus, and he says, the picture's really bleak, gentlemen. The world's climates are changing, the mammals are what's it say there? Oh, that's right, mammals are taking over, and we all have a brain the size of a walnut. I think we know how that story ended. They weren't able to adapt. So adaptability is huge. And so, in fact, I think adaptability is probably the number one life skill that you can develop because change will surely come. And the way that I think you can deal with that is by having your own vision of how you want your life to be and how you want your practice to be and what type of clients you want, etc. So hopefully today you'll be open to the idea of some changes because even though this is very cliche, it's true. The definition of insanity is just doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting a different result. And that's been, it's the oldest cliche. But you also have to do your part to change things. There's a funny story I like about a gentleman who kept going to church every Sunday. He prayed to win the lottery. Every Sunday he goes to church. He does this for 10 straight weeks. And finally, after 10 weeks of praying to win the lottery, he gets angry at God. And he yells up, he says, God, I've been in here 10 straight weeks praying to win the lottery, and yet nothing. Guy calls back down to him and says, "Meet me halfway. Buy a ticket already." So if you're happy with where you are, good for you. If you have reached your goals in life and in your business, great for you. But if you haven't, sometimes you have to change what you're doing in order to grow. And Tom Peters, the great business writer, said, if it ain't broke, break it. I mean, that's how you innovate. Sometimes you have to reinvent yourself. I've reinvented my business many times over the years of my career. When we started out, we used to give away advice and sell product. Now we sell advice and we give away the product. So it's, we've kind of gone full circle on that. I come across in my clients a little bit contrarian. Has anyone ever had a conversation with a client that has come in and read something in the paper? They've heard it on Susie Orman, they've seen it on CNBC, and they are 100% sold on this. And I think we owe it to our clients to push back on that and challenge their thinking. And that's what I do. I come across as being a contrarian sometimes. I say, well, what if we did it a different way? And at the end of the day, I've made a living doing that because the clients come to me now instead of coming to Susie Orman. You're never going to get away from reacting to that, but that's part of the deal. So I'm going to get into some specific things now. This is one of the biggest game-changing ideas that I came across, and this is to create and run your business as if you plan to sell it. I've never sold my business yet. I don't know that. I'm getting to a point in my career where I may think about doing that. I'm gearing up for it. I don't know when it'll happen, but I'm working on transition. And there's people here at this conference I know that have been very successful at transitioning their business. Some of you may be in the middle of a transition, of a succession plan. But I think even if you've never planned to sell your business, if you think in terms of running your business for profit, that's a huge concept. It seems obvious, but do you really know your profit margins? Do you know what your break-evens are in terms of how much money you need to bring in every month to cover your expenses? Are you making money? Do you know what your hourly rate is? Let's say how many hours a week are you working, and how much are you making? If it's easy math, and you have to ask yourself, are you doing $10 an hour work here or what? So that's an important concept. The way to get started on that is to create standardized processes, standard processes. There's a process for everything. In our office, we have standard operating procedure. We have worksheets. We have these client service worksheets. So everybody knows when something's supposed to be done and who's supposed to do it. It's all in order. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. And I have a copy of one of these. If anybody ever wants it, just let me know afterwards and I'll get it to you. Do you have a business plan where you've actually written down, at least at the beginning of the year, what do you plan to produce this year? Are you going to hire staff? How much time are you going to take off? What markets are you going to try to get into? Where's the business coming from? That's key, really. Have you created a mission statement? I mean, what's your purpose for doing this every year? Are you just waking up trying to pay the bills, or are you trying to make MDRT? Are you trying to make your leaders club in your company? Our business plan, our mission statement is to help people clarify and achieve their financial and life goals. That's easy. People have that vision in their mind typically about what they want to have happen in their life, but they don't know how to crystallize it and how to put it into an actionable plan. So that's what we do. It's a real simple statement, and it's very important in your mission statement that it be actionable. It can't just be something lofty. It has to be something that's going to happen. So here's a crazy idea. Create your business in a way that you make profit. I know a lot of people out there basically are selling at a loss and trying to make it up in volume. And we rationalize this because we drive a long way to make very little bit of money, but you're rationalizing that at least you have activity, at least you have a client there. A big concept for me was to avoid the client approval trap. I know I'm a person that is maybe I'm a pleaser, let's say it that way. I like people to like me. I want my clients to like me. I want my clients to love me. I don't like it when I find out that they bought insurance from somebody else or that they have investments with somebody else. But on the same token, you can't let them run your business. We keep regular business hours. There's times when we work and there's times when we don't work. We're not on 24/7. So our clients have learned to adapt to that, and they will, and they actually like the predictability of it. In fact, most of them will say that they don't want to bother us on the weekend or after hours. And my experience in my career has been that people have adapted to that, and it's made us more profitable because we're more predictable. We can build a process around that. They'll still love you if you run your business like a business. And, I have a picture of me performing at MDRT, which is a little bit gratuitous, I admit, but I never get tired of seeing myself in pictures performing. But basically, the idea is to create a raving fan. I'm not a big Bruce Springsteen fan, for instance, but I love Tom Petty. So I respect people that love Bruce Springsteen, but I am a Tom Petty guy, and I have all his records. I go to all the shows. I buy the T-shirts, and that's what I want to try to create in my business. I want my fans to buy all my stuff, and they do. Some people get me, and some people don't, and the ones that do is all I'm worried about. So I would encourage you to try to build that culture in your business. So let's talk about some systems that we've used. Some of them are very basic, but they're very effective. We use what we call a 1 through 31 file. Anybody using a 1 through 31 file, a basic tickler system in their office? A few? It's real simple. It's old school, and you can probably find a way to automate this, but we still do it the old school. We have a file cabinet with, it's 12 months, 30 or 31 days in each month. And what we do is we rotate this daily. So we can put something in for a given month, a file or a memo or some service. We can put it in for a given month, and then we can forget about it because each day staff comes in, they rotate that file around to the back, and the next day comes forward. And you can just reach in and pull out the work. Each individual employee would use that. I use it. So I can get it off my desk and off my mind. That's the main thing. Because I don't like having all the paper stacked up on my desk. It stresses me out. So the clean desk, everything I'm not using goes in the file of some kind. Now, maybe you could figure out a way to automate that. You might be able to. I just haven't yet. Another thing I learned that was very helpful to me was to create a to-do list with the 5 most important things that you need to get done every day. And you can do this either first thing in the morning or the last thing in the day for tomorrow. But the goal is to put the most important thing at the top of the list and just work down that list. So if something happens where you get interrupted and you can't finish everything, at least you know you did the top thing. If you did number 1 and that's all you did the most important thing for that day. And then you just start over the next day. My favorite list is what's called the to-done list. And that's where everything gets done. All 5 things got done. And I like to leave that out every now and then to let me know I'm making some progress. Here's a tip that I got from a friend of mine, and some of you may know him here, Randy Scritchfield. I think this is very powerful. Monitor weekly your activity. Monitor your activity weekly. It's okay to see people, but you have to know really what you're getting out of it. So are you seeing enough people? And don't confuse this activity with productivity. You need to know what you're doing every week and making sure that it's enough to get where you want to go. And then monthly, you measure monthly, you add up the numbers, and you evaluate your progress. So you can tell whether you're behind or whether you're on ahead of where you want to be or whether you're on track. And then quarterly, you reevaluate what you've done. What's working, what's not working. And then that way you can make the changes that you need to make in order to go forward into the next quarter. If you haven't, I recommend that you define your process. This is very important. What we did is we went through and figured out every single thing that we do. For instance, let's say, take life insurance. What's the first thing that happens? You have a prospect that calls in or you make an appointment. That's number one. What's the next thing that happens? Do you send a letter confirming the appointment? What's number two? Who sends out that letter? When does it go out? What's the third step? Is there a physical file made for it? Is there a proposal created? Is there an application put in the file? Is it prepared for signature? All the things, literally every single step. And we found there was like 30 steps in this process from start to finish. And my goal was to have the fewest, my name in there the least. Actually, I wanted to have the fewest steps with my name next to it. But we have step number one, and who does it, and when it was done, and when it was completed. So if you do that, then you'll be able to delegate steps to other people in your office. And these steps allow you to delegate, and that's what's so important about a defined process, because it enables this delegation, which standardizes your process, which allows you to automate your process ultimately. And that way, you know you're doing the same things over and over again, the same way. Everyone knows how to do it. You're not running the seat of the pants business. There's a really good book out about this. It's called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. And he uses McDonald's as an example in there, but I think we're all familiar with it. Pretty much a McDonald's sandwich is pretty much the same everywhere you go, really, in the world. If anybody's wondering, the production for MDRT on our weekly, monthly, and quarterly management, your weekly number is $1,750 of annualized first-year commission a week. If you do that, I'm going to see you in MDRT next year. If you do it quarterly, it's $22,700, and monthly it's $7,500. That doesn't seem like it's that insurmountable if you focus on it and think about how you want to do it. I think some of you might have seen this guy yesterday. This is my tech geek. I know a little bit about technology. In fact, I've had to ask for some help on something on my iPad today, and I'm a tech guy, but I don't know that much about technology per se. I just know what I need it to do for me, so I like to outsource and delegate. In fact, I outsource a lot of what I do. That's a big key, is trying to do everything yourself. Now, I can get specific about this as you want me to, but I'll just give you a bit of an overview. We're paperless. Now, there's no such thing as completely paperless, most likely, because at some point you have to have paper. It has to go in the system. But what we have is scanners on everyone's desk. Some of the staff have dual monitors, so they can work with the paper when they're putting it in, and so they can retrieve it. But by getting rid of that paper, we got rid of our file room. And as I mentioned yesterday, it allows us to be completely mobile. So that's super important, because I can just pull up right on this iPad information from my clients from wherever I want to go. We use pretty much all our software is web-based. So we use Redtail, and Redtail allows for email hosting, and it also allows for document management, and also it's our universal global database, so we can, everybody in the office can retrieve that all at the same time. We've outsourced our compliance needs. Now, if you're working for an insurance company or certain broker-dealers, you may not be able to do that. But we've been able to outsource our compliance needs. So anything that we need backup on, we have a third-party source for that. I've also outsourced my financial planning, because I found that we were becoming overwhelmed, and I had a full-time staff person that was just focused on that. And I found someone in Oakland, California, I live in Maryland, that we work with, where we can upload all of the client data, send it to them in a secure vault, and then they can download it, do the planning, and send it back to us. And we found out we can make profit doing that, whereas I was doing it in an office, and it was close. So that's been tremendously helpful. And we've outsourced all of our tax work. We use paychecks for our payroll, even though we're a very small office, because I found I was either doing it myself or paying somebody to do it. And it was just much cheaper in the long run to outsource that. Plus, I know my taxes are paid, and I know they're paid right, and it works. So it's a bit of an expense, but at the end of the day, it turns out that it's really an investment. We've started outsourcing some products. So I realized where I live in Maryland is Maryland, the District of Columbia, and Virginia. 3 states right together there near where I live in D.C. To sell something like long-term care insurance is mind-boggling because you have 3 different states, they have 3 slightly different contracts, and even though I know how to sell it, I realize I'm better at triaging for it and then outsourcing it. So I found a provider that all he does is sell long-term care insurance. He knows everything about it. He knows all the carriers. He knows who's getting ready to put take their product off the market. And I just simply tell my clients that he's a professional that knows how to get the best long-term care for their situation, and they love it. I get half the commission. He does all the work. And what I've found is my revenues in this particular product line have gone up. And it also supports my overall goal of not basically being a product person, but being a process person. So they get what they need. I've helped them do that. And frankly, the guy sells more long-term care than I probably would have. So that's an idea for you. I really want to outsource any health insurance products that I have left because, as we all know, that's a bit dicey, and I don't really want to learn about that, and I don't want to know what's going to happen there. So we've begun that process. And we have always outsourced our employee benefits. So I know maybe some of you in here, that's all you do is employee benefits, and that's great. Wouldn't it be nice to have some people like myself just giving this business to you? You know what to do with it. So while we're talking about shedding some duties, I want to just bring up some things about staff. In my experience, in order to have effective staff, you really have to empower them. And what I mean by that, you have to train them, you have to hold them accountable, and you really have to enable them to be able to do the job. I don't call my office when I'm out of the office, ever. Because what I learned was I didn't really have anything to add to the conversation. If I've trained them properly and paying them appropriately, they should be able to do the job that I've hired them to do. And if they're not, I probably have the wrong person. So I didn't see the point of me calling in and saying, how's everything going? Do you need me for anything? In a way, it's disrespectful, I think, to the staff. I mean, you're basically saying that I've hired you, but I don't trust you. And I think if you talk to most staff people, they'll probably tell you they get most of their work done when you're gone. So, and they're always a little bit apprehensive when you come back because you're just going to throw crap on their desk, and then you're going to hover over them to see if they're doing it right. So let them do it. Teach them how to do it, and you take that free time and use it to see more people and do what you're really supposed to be doing. I heard a great phrase once: relentlessly pursue the release of control. If you think about that for a minute, it's really hard to do because, as Dr. Will Miller talked about yesterday, we all tend to be a little bit control freaks. We all tend to think that only we can do it. Many of us in this business are what's called rugged individualists. I can do it. I can do it quicker because by the time I delegate it to them, I could have done it. But then you find yourself doing some low-level work. I want to show you, I don't know if you can all see this chart, but I just want to show you real quick this basic concept. What I figured out was, this is me. It's about 10% of all the things. Can you see this, basically? This is 100% of all the things that need to be done in my business. And what I figured out is there's about 10%, really, of the things in our business that only I can do. They tend to be on the relationship side. But they're because of my experience and my education and my background that I'm able to talk to my clients or do these particular things. They're just not capable. And there's probably about 50% of the things that are pretty basic, things that need to get done: appointments, maintenance, filing, electronic filing, however, answering phones. That certainly can be outsourced. And I think this is where a lot of people stop here. This is staff. This is your basic staff. And sometimes that's all we allow our staff to do, are these basic things, because we don't want them screwing up anything in here, this other 40%. So guess what happens? You and I, we come down into this world. We start doing some of this stuff. And to me, that makes no sense, because if that's the case, then we need to hire somebody that's capable of doing some of the things here, because I guarantee you most of us are doing this work here. We're doing this work when really the only thing that we're uniquely qualified to do is this 10% new. And down here, this is $20 an hour work. Relentlessly pursue the release of control. So the idea here is that a lot of us are doing lower level work because either we won't hire somebody, or we feel like we can't because we don't have the money. And another thing I've learned is that it's not an expense to hire staff. It's really an investment. You will see a return on that, I promise you, if you can make that leap. It's not always easy to do, I understand that, but there's ways to do it. I tried to stay in that 10%. I try to only see clients, devise systems, create value, and sign stuff. Because that's a lot of, sometimes I have to do that. That's my job description. And at the end of the day, you're losing money when you're doing work that your assistant can be doing. But I guarantee you, we're all doing it. We've all done it. As I mentioned yesterday, you really can't nickel and dime your way to the top. Sometimes we want to try to save a few bucks because we could do it ourselves or we could automate it. Outsource it, fine. Sometimes that's where you get your leverage. Dan Sullivan, the strategic coach, I was involved in that program for 5 years, and he said something really powerful, I think. He said, if you want the energy to create the show, then you sell the tickets. And that's just another way of saying you have to hire the person before you actually have the money to pay for them sometimes. Once you've done that, you will definitely rise to the occasion, because now you have a reason that you have to go out and work a little harder or work a little smarter. Another way to think about it, another great thing he said was Frank Sinatra did not put the piano up on the stage. Frank Sinatra simply walked out on the stage and sang. He didn't move the gear around. He shows up for the show and he sings. And that's what we're trying to do. That's what we should be striving for, is that we walk in and we have that unique ability, that top 10% knowledge, and we've delegated everything else to our staff so we can have the freedom. Think about what you do every day, what somebody else could be doing if you're really honest with yourself and you give up some control, and how much extra time you would have to do the things that are really important, that only you can do. And so that's really the message. This little cartoon here about Dilbert. I love Dilbert. I get the daily emails from Dilbert. And sometimes when you think about technology, you think that you really are trying to avoid human contact. That's not the point. As I said before, the more high-tech we become, the more valuable high-touch becomes. So we try to do a few things in our office to really make that touch important. We send plants, we send plants instead of flowers because they last longer. I had an old lady, she was in her late 90s actually, she was my oldest living client. She had a ton of money with us, and she died with more money than she started with, and she took a lot out. She loved to cruise. She always told me that if we weren't cruising, we were losing. She loved to take her granddaughters cruising. But we used to give her these plants, and she would occasionally send pictures of the plants and send them to us. So we'd put them up in our office, and people would say, "Where's that from?" And we would say, "Well, that's what Grace sent us a picture of the plant we gave her when she turned, 90, or when she, maybe for Christmas or something, we sent her a plant." When she died, we kept that business because her sons came to us, and they said, "You did well for our mother. You treated her with respect, and she adored you. And all of us just want to have the same. We just want the same." And so I felt really great about that. And that's just a real simple thing, just taking the little extra effort to do these things. I've had people that have had children die. And I found a book, and I know now you're going to ask me for it, and I can't remember it. But the idea was it was a book on grief. And I wanted to reach out and do something. When somebody loses a child, especially if it's an adult child, like teenager, that sort of thing, it can be devastating. And I wanted to reach out and make some kind of an extraordinary contact. So I sent this book, and I wrote something in the front of it. And these people never forgot it. It was something that they read, and they felt great about. And I felt like I was taking a bit of a risk at that time. I think when those things happen, you have to go in there. And maybe some of you, it's your natural instinct. I mean, for mine, it was, I didn't know what to say. But what I learned was it didn't matter what I said. If you don't know what to say, call up and say, I don't know what to say, but I'm here for you. And those types of deep touches like that will really help you build lifelong relationships. Take the risk to get more personal. I always put this little tightrope on there. I started going to visit clients in their homes that they retired in. Not their retirement home, but we helped people build homes in other cities and other states where they retired. And they started asking me to come and stay with them when I visit. And at first I thought it was a little awkward. You know, I'm going to wake up in the morning in their house, and what am I going to be in my PJs, and we're going to have breakfast. But you know what? I took the chance and did it, and now it's a whole thing. Because one person hears about it, and then they say, well, we know you stayed there. Well, next time you come, you've got to stay with us. And now they're all fighting over, you know, when I'm going to come stay with them. But it's fantastic because we've built these lifelong friendships and relationships, and those are, nobody's going to ever take those away from you. So I'm encouraging people to take it just a little bit deeper. When you become known as a problem solver and you reach out to people at these deep levels, this really transcends all product. Okay? Because we kind of live in a world now where things are becoming commoditized. You know, you can get insurance from anybody. You can get a lot of these products from anyone. The healthcare is a good example of it. You know, the broker is going to be maybe moved out of that process eventually. So we don't ever want to be out of the process. We want to be in a different position within the process. So again, I don't want to go that one yet. So we're managing relationships. Now, we have an ideal client profile. So what we've done is we've created what we think would be the perfect client. We want to get referrals from attorneys and CPAs and other centers of influence. And we try to meet with them periodically, like once a week if possible, doing something. It doesn't have to be super formal, but to try to get together and share with them what it is we're doing for people, give them some case studies, some things that we've done recently that might be of interest to some of their clients. But we give them this client profile so that they know exactly what we're looking for. We work with a lot of widows. We work with a lot of corporate executives that are gearing up for retirement. And we obviously are now working with a lot of retirees. So we have that. And what I used to use was this 10-3-1. Has anyone ever heard of Al Granham's 10-3-1 concept? Where you see 10 people, you get 3 appointments, and you make 1 sale. Well, I started thinking about that and realizing that probably what was more effective was to try to get 1 great relationship that will give you 3 referrals. And then those 3 referrals will spawn 10 second-generation referrals. And that's what we've tried to focus on. Find those few great relationships and teach them how to refer you to the people that you're looking for. And they can also be centers of influence as well. We do a lot of little things. Like I mentioned, we send out little notes. We call people. I like to call people at the end of the day sometimes just to say hello because it makes me feel good. When I make contact with a client, it gives me energy. And I think whatever your market is, it's just really important for you to know what's important to those folks, and so you can build your systems, your thank you notes. This is true for all your clients. What do they respond to? Do they like a little Starbucks gift card? Do they just like you to call them more often? Do they like to see you in person more often? And whatever it is that you need to know, you need to find out what that is for that market. This is also true for the information, because if I'm working with corporate employees, I want to know about stock options. I want to know what their retirement plan looks like so I can help them really understand it. And what we found was that your competence equals your confidence. So the more you know about your market and the more you really know your marketplace, the more confident you're going to be in it and ultimately effective. I want to share, this is a little idea we had in our office. It's a digital picture frame. Now, when people would come in, we would have pictures of our clients having fun in their retirement, and our clients would ask what that is. Who are those people? These are people that we've helped retire. They're in, some resort having fun. So there's a little bit of a subtle message there that they might want to try to do that too one day, and maybe we can help them do that. I want to go back to talking about how you provide value. You're not really paid to deliver products, performance, results, reports or financial plans. They're all commodities now. Have you bought a car recently? How many people shop almost exclusively online now for clothes, for almost anything? So we need to transcend that. In the food chain of value, we have data, information, knowledge, and wisdom. Now that chart goes into a number of different things, but if you think about that, there's a lot of data and information. And a lot of us have knowledge. In fact, the clients have a ton of knowledge. They can get all that off Google. But what they don't have and what they don't get and what's the most valuable element is wisdom. And that's really what we sell at the end of the day. So you might ask yourself, if you're under 10 years in the business, how can you hold out as having wisdom? I say, this is my symbol for wisdom, the Dalai Lama on a cell phone. But I say, if you're younger or less experienced, you might say that your product knowledge, your experience, having your defined process, and your technology could be defined as wisdom. And that's still pretty powerful, and it's very valuable to people. Understanding your real value proposition is very important. Who are you? What do you do? Why do you do what you do? How do you do what you do? Who do you do it for? What makes you so different? Why should somebody do business with you? I think you need to be able to answer those questions right in front of your client on demand. Because some of them will ask you that, and they'll ask you in different ways. And it's just a simple thing. You can write that down, memorize it, and when they ask you, you just take it right off. But you need to do that. All right, I'd like to just talk a little bit about the big picture. In 1991, when I was here the first time, I heard a speaker, happened to be an MDRT speaker. He made this statement. He said, transcend the how. And we were talking about it at lunch today. That has stuck with me all these years, because how many times have you been in your office talking about doing something different, or even in a company meeting, or working in your church or your civic organization, where a committee has gotten together and talked about doing something? The first thing people want to go to is the how. How are we going to do that? We don't have any money. How are we going to do that? I don't have any time. And the how will come to you if you will start with why. Why do you want to do this? Where are we going with this? The how comes from there. But if you don't know where it's like the old saying, you can't get there from here, but you can get here from there. You have to know where it is you're going first before you can start plotting your path to get there. So spend some time trying to understand what it is your vision is, what's your purpose, what are you on earth here to do. It's probably not about selling products. I can guarantee that. Take time out to plan what you really want to have happen. And let your internal values drive you. Try not to be influenced by external values. Stephen Covey talked about this in his 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. To be principle-centered so that your actions are being driven by what's coming out from your center, as opposed to being influenced by what you're seeing. And we get a lot of negative images from media in particular today. And as you know, in our business, we're not the most popular people in the world. We're trying to charge fees. We're trying to sell expensive products. You could get it online. You could get it at Schwab. people come in and we say this is our most valuable asset, is our principles. In 2007 through 2009, managing money like we do, it was a tough time because the market kept dropping and dropping and dramatically. And people were really questioning the plan. We were challenged hard on our basic belief system. But I read something Alexander Hamilton said, if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. So I think it's those times when you are challenged, and that's when your faith and your principles and your real belief system needs to be firm. I mean, you can't go reacting and changing to those outside circumstances. And that's what leadership is. That's what our clients are really, really paying for us to do. Back to that leadership, relationship, and creativity. Leadership is giving them direction and giving them those solid principles that they can get behind. The relationship follows naturally from that, and that's where people know that you're doing all the right things for them for all the right reasons. And then the creativity is where you help them maximize the opportunities that they have. So this, I believe, is a very valuable proposition. So create your own strategy. You know, strategy without execution is called hallucination. But execution without a strategy is chaos. And I know a lot of us live in a chaotic world in that sense. We're constantly reacting to what's happening. We are, at the end of the day, agents of change. And for some people, it's hard to put yourself in that position, but our clients are looking to us to show them what to do. And if you think of yourself in a higher calling like that, the products and the sales and the goals and things, they all fall into line if you're leading with this in your own mind. Your clients will sense that. They'll want to follow you, and they'll want to follow your advice, and they'll pay you for it. So our whole practice, it turns out, is just really built around the transition that naturally occurs in people's lives. If you think about all the things that have happened to people in the 33 years that I've been doing this, death, disability, children being born with defects, all kinds of things, unexpected business failures, bankruptcies. People will come in, they need your help, they need your counsel. And so once I kind of figured that out, I stopped worrying so much about making every day count. I just wanted to be as productive as I could. I worked when I'm supposed to be working, and I play when I'm supposed to be playing. It's just very important to try to distinguish those. Some people have said, Dan Sullivan told this story once. I'll tell you this. He says he takes 11 weeks a year off. And someone said, well, how can you afford to take 11 weeks a year off? He says, well, you take 11 weeks a year off, my friend. The only difference is I do it in a resort. You do it sitting at your desk. So I tell people, live the life you really want to live. Make a plan for yourself that supports that. I realized when I turned 50, which was 9 years ago, that 50 years old, my God, I might only have 20 years left. Who knows? I mean, I've had friends that have died in their 50s. And I started thinking, this is it. There's no drill. There's no second chance. Thank God I haven't had anything happen to me yet that would be significant from a medical point of view. But I know people that have. And so it just occurred to me that I wanted to have that last remaining years really count for something. I would encourage you, do the things that you want to do. Exercise regularly. Lose weight. Get yourself energized. Make the time. Pamper yourself a little bit. You want to take piano lessons? Go take piano lessons. You want to go get a massage Wednesday afternoon? Go get a massage Wednesday afternoon. None of us are so busy or so special or important that we can't leave the office at the end of the day. Because if that's the case, then you don't really own a business. You own a job. You need to be able to go out there and make this the life you want. Why not be here to enjoy your family and your friends? You can have all the things you want if you just help enough other people get the things that they want. So there'll be one of those stories that people talk about that they didn't work out, they didn't eat right, they didn't take time for themselves, they worked themselves to death. Work smart, work hard, and play hard. So I appreciate the time today. I know I speak for those of us from MDRT that are here today, that we appreciate you having us here. It's been a real pleasure to be around all of you. It's been a fantastic crowd of people, and I just want to thank you for letting us be part of this excellent conference. Thanks.